I'll get everyone wrangled in. We'll call the meeting to order, please.
Folks, we're in order.
Well, I didn't hear anything. A little stronger leadership.
We're a better.
We'll call the meeting to order, and we'll get the Audit and Control Committee meeting for December 14th moving along. If everyone had an opportunity to read over the minutes from the last meeting, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next privilege, or next on our agenda is privilege of the floor. Is anyone here today? Not seeing anyone, we'll move on to our resolutions. It's been brought to my attention that an individual would like to move some resolutions up because they have an engagement to get to. So I will take things out of order if everyone's okay with that.
Sure.
So I'd like to start on 18 and 19, and then we'll revert back to the original order. So we'll go over number 18. Proposed resolution authorized renewal of lease agreement for 2024 with City of Jamestown for office space for the Department of Mental Hygiene.
Good morning, and thank you for the accommodation. I appreciate that. I'm Trish McLennan, Deputy Director with the Department of Mental Hygiene and Social Services. So that resolution, we have been doing a year over year. Last year for 22 to 23, we did a one-year contract with the city, and that expires December 31st, and we are looking for another 1 year only contract. We are continuing to seek other options to see if there's other alternatives within the Jamestown area. There have been some issues, as you folks have heard about, with environmental situations there, roof leak, stained ceiling tiles that have resulted in some state citations for us that we've had to address. We also have a request that will also help financially to Mayor Sundquist, requesting a lowering of several of the months, September through December of 2023. That this will also help because we do recognize they did raise the rent a little bit, but if we can get some of it lowered, because we were not able to use all the space we were leased because of some of the leaking. So we have requested an amount of $11,075 per month, reducing it to $6,092 for September through December. So we're hoping that will also offset some of what the increase is for 24. But we are requesting just a 1 year. If we do find another site, it will obviously take more than a year to get that approved, ready, and remodeled. So we do believe a year is reasonable, and we are continuing to work with the City of Jamestown to make the repairs needed for our clients and our staff.
Well, there's no sense of beating a dead horse, so
No,
I
there
can
isn't.
reserve
I'm
some of my
sorry.
comments, and you've explained it well enough, so thank you. It's unfortunate the situation that we find ourselves in, but I appreciate the work that you've done on it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Anyone have questions, comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, have you, these issues that you're having at City Hall, have you spoken to our legal department about that?
Yes. Mr. Slagle is involved with this. He has had conversations. I don't know if you want to just
No,
speak
no, that's
anything,
fine.
but
I just
yes.
want to make sure that we're
Yes,
taking care of
absolutely,
what
sir.
we need to.
Correct. We've been in touch with the city, and I know there's other options on the table that we're looking at future plans, and so we're just trying to balance both sides. At this current time, I think extending the lease would be the best fiscal option. But again, we're only looking for a short-term increase. We're not looking for a multi-year lease,
No.
which is common. I think most of our leases, we look at 3
3
to
to
5,
5.
10-year leases. Here, we're just going short leases while we work out all the issues that are going on.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, just one question. Trish, so this $14.60 per square foot, that's what we're currently paying, and this is just extension for 2024?
I think it went up slightly. I've got last.
Okay, it talks about a 12-month.
Yes, it is a
extension.
12-month. Yes, it is a 12-month extension, but we also are asking if they cannot get all the square footage that we're leasing usable, then we'll continue to request from our legal that they reduce some of that.
No, I understand that.
But yes, that's correct.
Are we paying $14.60 per square foot currently? And if you don't have that, you can get
I
back
can
to me.
get back to you on that.
Yeah, that's fine, that's fine.
Yes, we are. I found just found, I
1460,
found last year's.
okay.
Yes, 1460 is 2022 to 2023. That's
Gotcha.
correct, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And then I'm here for the next one too.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just thinking and
Okay,
processing more.
okay, I wasn't sure which way.
No? Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. I
Thank you.
don't agree
Appreciate
with
that.
continuing on with something that we're not in good shape with, so. Next resolution, number 19, is amend 2023 budget to implement the Critical Incident Stress Management Team project using funding from the American Rescue Plan Act.
So this is exciting. When I first arrived to the county a little over 2 years ago, was asked to assist with a couple of staff and teams who had undergone significant exposure to other people's trauma. So you think, for example, and I'm not going to go into specifics, obviously, for privacy of our community, but CPS workers encounter frequently some really difficult situations when they're doing home visits. There may end up being a fatality. There may end up being abuse they're witnessing. Our probation department witnesses a whole lot of things that are can weigh on your mind. Our mental hygiene department with our mobile crises team goes out. They have witnessed gunshot wounds with attempted suicides. They've witnessed all kinds of assaults. They've witnessed abuse. This CISM team, what CISM is designed for, is an international training and well recognized and been in place for a number of years. CISM is designed to help the people who are taking care of the community. That's what CISM's for. We often talk in here, and I've been one of the people asked to talk about workforce development, how we're going to handle retention issues. This is another way. This is different from your EAP. We do have an employee assistance program with the county. Employee assistance program are professional counselors designed to help provide counseling when there's anything impacting a person's ability to work. We have therapists. You know, that's obviously my specialty. That's my background. That's also different. That's when there is a diagnosis and an issue going on that a person is struggling with. CISM is peer support. Peer support means it's something that a person can relate to. So for example, if someone in probation had and I'm just going to use them because they're very different from my employment, okay? If they're going through something, wouldn't it be nice if there was a trained probation person who could actually provide support? If we're talking CPS or we're talking nurses, nurse to nurse is much different than some do-gooder therapists like myself walking in and pretending to understand. So what we're proposing, what this is, CISM, again, international. I've got a proposal for a contract, got the estimate already, so that's why I'm requesting that amount. But the $10,000 would pay for a internationally trained, so it's a person who comes down here to our town. They would train up to 20 to 25 of our staff that we would pick very carefully to become CISM peer support. That team would be a very confidential team. That team may get a referral from Debbie Mikowski if she's aware of something that occurred in a department. And the team may be asked to call that supervisor of that department to see if they could use some support. Wonder, heaven forbid, if there was something occurred in this building that impacted a lot of our employees in a negative way. We'd want to employ that CISM team immediately to help. There is a CISM team, some of you are familiar with it, within our emergency response system within this county. First responders. It is that same type of program, but this would be mainly for your staff, your team, your employees here in the county who are taking care of our community. So that $10,000 would pay for that training, and then there would be brief refreshers each year. The brief refreshers are not cost prohibitive. We're talking several $100s, not thousands of dollars. Okay, that would be the initial piece. My familiarity with it and why I'm so bent on this one is I have been the lead of a CISM team in the past at a previous employment. And I did see the impact when an emergency room nurse could actually talk with an emergency room nurse after they witnessed a traumatic event, where a doctor could speak to a doctor rather than some do-gooder therapist. And also normalizes. When you're facing something like an acute event, the idea is to normalize it. Not the event, but the reactions to it. There are expected reactions to events that impact you. You may not sleep for a while. You may have some physical stress. You may experience a lot of different ways. So what CISM also does is help with the debriefing, help with normalizing the stress reactions, and then if needed, refers to some higher level of counseling, whether it be our employee assistance program, whether it be therapy. But that's what CISM does. So the request is the $10,000 to do that. And what I would ask, if this is approved, I would ask that you ask me back in about 6 months to be accountable, to say, how's it going? I would expect that if I'm asking for ARPA funding, that I would report back to you to tell you how we're using responsibly the money that you're asking us to spend. So I would put that part of it, even though that was not part of my request. So that's my request.
No, thank you for your explanation. I'm very glad that you're proposing this and being proactive and feeling a need, so thank you.
Thank you.
Questions, comments?
Dan, just one. Trish, many years ago when I worked for the Office for Aging, I knew people in CPS. They came across a lot of sexual abuse things. That has to be very traumatic for them. So those folks would be
Yes.
eligible for this program.
Yes, and just to take it one step further, imagine if I'm a 25-year-old mom who just gave birth to an infant, and I'm a CPS worker, and I'm going out seeing somebody that age.
Abused.
Can you imagine now going home and the impact that has on that mom or that dad or that grandmother or that aunt or that uncle? That's what we're talking about. And then along with this, not immediately, the hope is that we could actually have a therapy dog to go along with these calls. There is nothing better. I'm seeing a little bit of applause in the back. Thank you. There is nothing better than having a certified therapy dog to actually go along with and to support. The impact of that would be amazing. So we would look at that. We would work closely with our HR department, work closely with legal to make sure we have policy and process for this. But that would be
Well,
a
that
pretty neat.
might be a next step.
That would be a next step.
Okay,
Absolutely.
understood.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Trish.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Not hearing any. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much. And I appreciate your time.
We'll revert back to proposed resolution number 1. Acceptance of CARTS Public Transportation 2023 Accelerated Transit Capital Grant.
Good morning. Tim Carr, Director of Public Facilities. This is the 2023 grant that the CARTS Hub receives on a yearly basis. The capital grant for the following for the hub project that we're working on.
Questions, comments?
Tim, were we expecting to get this grant, or is this just kind of fall into our lap?
Yeah, this is just kind of something that comes every year.
Okay.
In line with questions with the grant receiving, pretty secure in receiving the grants. Do you think you know of any that are going to be phasing out over time, or if they seem to still be giving you the grants every year?
Yeah, this one,
just like
Michelle
this one,
seems to feel that it does come every year.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Next proposed resolution is the amend capital project accounts Jamestown Community College. Is there anyone here to speak on this today?
Nobody.
Kitty's coming.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm well, thanks.
Good.
Please say-
Jennifer Swan, Budget Director, Chautauqua County. This resolution is to decrease the funding, or actually, there should be an amended resolution, I believe, somewhere in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, okay.
Okay, sorry, I-
So the amended resolution, JCC has run into a situation with two of their two specific projects. One, roofing that needs repairs that need to be addressed sooner than anticipated. In the other case, I believe it's exterior renovations, and those bids came in higher than expected. They would like to decrease the funding in two of their other projects, and this is basically their way of prioritizing based on what they feel is the most imminent need. They do realize that this cuts back on the funding that they have available for those other two projects. And they're basically willing to deal with that in order to compensate for what is needed in the two that need more money. So that's what this amendment addresses.
I just have a comment. So this, in front of us, is a version that is outside of the packet that is laying on the table, and it has some slashes across to it. Those are amendments, and they do need to be amended today.
Right.
I just want to, so if everyone's okay with those things that are being amended, I would entertain a motion to amend those so we can discuss the amended version.
I'll make a motion to amend.
And in a second,
I'll second that.
all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. So now we are discussing the resolution as amended in front of us.
Yes.
And it is budget neutral in sense that they're
Yes.
utilizing capital funds.
Correct.
Okay. Questions, comments?
It's still the same amount, Danny, even in the amended resolution,
Yep.
basically.
Uh,
I'm okay with it.
Okay. A little discussion on this. Is this the typical format that, can you explain a little bit of the process when it comes to JCC asking for funds for a capital project?
Yeah, I'm gonna have Kitty come up and help me with this one because I'm very new to dealings with JCC, so I
Thank
would
you.
definitely defer to her for that. She's got a lot more background than I do.
I just wanted to look at these. Is this one is
This isn't the amended
the old
version.
one? Okay.
This is-
Kitty Crow, Director of Finance. With respect to JCC, the annual capital budget process, they follow the same as all county departments. So roughly in April of every year, we put out notice to all, to anyone that's at all county departments as well as JCC that the capital budget cycle is starting. These are the forms. This is how you submit a request. This is the review process. So they're just included just along with all other county departments in our capital budget cycle. So any projects that the planning board reviews their projects alongside all the county departments as well and prioritizes them, in the report that they provide to the legislature every June. And then through the Capital Projects Review Committee, all capital project requests are reviewed. Then during the budget hearings, they're reviewed again. If there's something that comes up off cycle, it would be treated the same way as any other county department. They would, typically reach out to the budget director to say that they had an off cycle project that they would like to propose, and it would just go through the resolution process. Usually first going through the planning board and then, through the resolution process, so.
Just a comment based on the amendments that were made to this. Originally, JCC had spent the money and then submitted us some bills that they overspent the capital projects and said, we need another 80,000 because we have the bills. And we were going to use fund balance.
Initially,
So-
we did propose because
Yep.
the reason for that was because they indicated to us that the other projects that they are now saying that they'll temporarily forego, but I would anticipate in the future that they would be seeking, that those projects be refunded, so to speak, because they still have those needs. So,
I agree. So the
Yeah.
process is a little marbled, and that's why I wanted to just have that conversation today
Yeah.
in this, and let the committee know that, what the true backlog is. And also, they're utilizing some funds from other projects. But as Kitty is suggesting here, that those projects still need to get done. So they're really just kind of postponing, and quite honestly, it'll probably hit the fund balance at some other point in time. But at least I hope that we can better this process a little bit. And sure, if they went over, that's fine. I think that they should come in and ask and make a better, raise their hand a little earlier before spending the money to say, hey, look, we need another 80,000, and just give us a bill. A little more update would be better throughout the process, so that when we very well could use fund balance, if that's what the need is. It is our responsibility to help them with the expenditures of these capital projects. We just need to make sure that we're kind of informed about it, so we can say yes.
Yeah, I'm working with JCC on trying to sort of better time how that process works, so that we're, so that we're notified in advance. With regard to the projects that they're reducing the funding to, in further discussions, they very openly acknowledge that, we would prioritize the other two projects more. They do realize that, coming back to us to essentially replenish that funding, the county does have the option of declining. And in which case, if they want to complete, their little tick list of things in those other two projects, they would have to come up with other funding on their own. So, they do acknowledge that that is a possibility, and that the county does have the right to do that if they do decide to come back to us to replenish that funding, so.
Well, and I thank you for your description, because we have they have to go through the process, so that it's not just us that they're going in front of. They're going in front of the review of the capital projects committee, and those things that are going to assess that.
Yep.
And eventually make a recommendation to us, so
Yep.
we'll let the process work. But I also wanted to just point out a few flaws in the process that I became
yeah.
aware of.
I mean,
so.
certainly once any project is underway, after it's been approved and it's in the budget, we would expect that any department head or JCC to come as soon as they know that a bid came in and it's gonna cause an over budget situation, and before proceeding any further, that the budget amendment needs to be done before that they can move forward on their project. So that would be the typical process that all department heads should follow. Occasionally, something unique comes up, but yeah, we will reinforce to JCC that they need to, before proceeding, we need to have the budget amended.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Well, folks, is this a case where the not the budget, but the whatever it was came in?
Yeah.
Thank you, Kitty. The bid came in over what they expected, or is this a cost overrun once they started the project?
In one case, the bid came in higher than they expected.
Okay.
And, as Kitty had mentioned, timing-wise, they sort of just decided to go with it because they wanted it or needed it to get done
Okay.
before the amendment was done. So, in that case, there was a bid that was over. In another case, the roofing, I think that they had anticipated repairing a roof maybe in future years that essentially needed to be repaired now.
Okay.
That they were running
Alright.
into issues with, so
Okay.
that's what caused the other overage.
So it's possible they didn't know until the last minute on some of the stuff here, and that's
Yes
why
and
this is
no.
here.
I mean,
Yeah. I mean, I think that could be a fair assumption with the roofing, but
Okay.
in a situation like the other one where
The
the bid
bid.
came, the bid came in
okay.
over, they could have held off on giving the contractor the go-ahead and agreeing to that amount. They what they really could have done was come to us first for the amendment.
Exactly.
So,
Jen
it's sort
and
of-
Kitty,
sort of a
I
twofold.
agree with Dan. As soon as they knew the bid was over what they expected, they should have come to the county.
They should have agreed.
But having said that, I mean, we are very supportive of JCC,
We are.
and I'll vote for this amendment, but it would be a good thing if in the future,
Yes.
if they know about these cost overruns or whatever, that they come to the county as soon as they can.
Yeah.
And just for further clarification between the originally pre-filed resolution, I mean, it was on my recommendation that, you know, after discussions with JCC, because their initial proposal was your amended version today to take from the other projects. And I said, well, do you still do not need to do those projects? And they said, well, we're still gonna need to do them. And I said, well, there's, you know, in my view at the time, it was, there's no sense in reducing those projects if you're still gonna need to do them. And proposed we write the resolution to utilize fund balance. But after further discussions, we decided, you know, it's for right now. But, so I'm just saying that for the, also for the record, so, you know, if in a few months or sometime next year, they come back to it, you know, and need to have the full funding for those projects, that, you know, it is a possibility. Or they'll just have to reprioritize and not do them, or seek other funding, so,
I just wanted to bring those
Yeah.
few processes to enlightenment.
Yep.
And also, I just want to portray that information to whoever is the responsible parties at JCC, that we'd like a little more advance notice and information along our way, instead of just the resolution. When was that work completed?
That I
You know.
don't know. I could find out and let you know.
I just
but
was curious
I-
if they
I'm
did
not
it
sure.
did they do it last month, or was it in like August, or, you know, when are the bills from? So that's,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
we're hearing
I'm
about
not-
it in
I'm not
December, right?
entirely
So that's
sure.
my point, so, okay. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried, thank you.
Thank you.
Next proposed resolution is distribution of mortgage taxes.
I guess I'll stay up here for that one. So this is just our regular, I think quarterly, can't remember exactly the cycle, but, the mortgage taxes are collected, and then this is the payment out to the municipalities of their share.
Questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried, thank you.
Do we, something wrong with mine?
We did, I
Oh,
think.
okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry, yeah, and I just was realizing that. I accidentally put an X on my,
Oh, okay.
my-
Sorry,
my
I
order.
thought I thought my other resolution was next, but.
It moves us along quicker.
It did, and geez Louise, I was giving someone else a hard time about their processes, and then I mess up, you know?
Okay.
We are all human.
Let's do every other one, Dan.
I think that's a good
Every
idea.
I gotta be out of by 9.
We were already on 18 and 19, I thought we'd just go to 20.
Sorry with me.
Let's go back to number 3, and we'll cover that one. It's amend 2023 budget for equipment purchases.
That's finance.
Yes. So this resolution is due to we needed to purchase some additional office equipment for our purchasing team is moving into the Faulkner office. And while we have utilized as much surplus furniture, you know, as we were able to, there was still a need to purchase some desks, and which case the unit price is over the threshold to purchase them under the contractual classification, so we need to move the money into the equipment classification.
Pretty straightforward. Any comments or questions?
This doesn't include a lazy boy chair for Jen, does it?
No, she's not part of the purchasing department.
Okay.
No, they're really just desks.
I'm just kidding.
Big screen TV.
They went with the leather ones, Terry. They were more expensive.
That's what I'm afraid of.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Now, we'll get back on track. I think it's proposed resolution number 5 is quitclaim deeds. And there is a amended version on your desks, and it has been amended, so we are going to be discussing the new amended version. Is anyone here to speak to this today?
I'll speak to it if you want.
Please.
We had a couple of bids on a couple of the properties, and some of the rationale, I mean, we really don't have to explain it. These are RFPs, they're not bids, I take that back. So we're allowed to select whichever ones we want. It's not strictly going by price, but it was a little easier because we had experience with Twin Star Development, and they are local. So the two that have 2 bids, we went with Twin Star on both of those. Not only are they local, but they were a little bit more money, so. Does that make sense?
It does.
And if you're adding up or keeping score at home, the offer amount was $23,900 for all the properties. And unfortunately, the taxes owing were $26,657.16, so. We're getting a little less than what they were, but this is properties that passed through the auction. So they were just kind of hanging out there, so it's good to get some money for them, and we not only got some, we almost got all that was owed. So that's my explanation of what's going on there.
And just for their knowledge, right, the county experiences the loss. The county paid the city in Dunkirk in full, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that very informative description. Proposed resolution number 6, authorize acceptance of indigent legal services grant distribution number 14 for the period of January 1, 2024 to December 31st, 2026.
Good morning, Derek Gregory, Assistant Public Defender for the Public Defender's Office. This resolution requests authorization from the legislature to give the county executive authority to sign the contract for distribution number 14. We've been receiving this funding stream for about 12 years. It's for $539,838. There's no matching funds involved. It pays the partial salary and fringe for one assistant public defender in the criminal division, partial salary for an assistant public defender in the family division. It also supplements the salary and fringe for the public defender, Mr. Barone, pays for salary and partial salary and fringe for a secretary administrative assistant, and also funds the increase in hours from 35 to 40 hours per week for family court employees.
Questions, comments?
Dan, just that we have that breakdown, Derek, thank you for that. Very informative.
Thank you.
Yep, that's good to know where all the dollars and cents are going.
And the revenue has already been included in our 2024 budget along with the expenses.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for all the work that you guys do in obtaining these grants, so. Proposed resolution number 7 is amend 2023 budget for Office of the Sheriff Navigation Snowmobile Department. You guys gonna be able to use these snowmobiles this year?
Not in 2023, maybe 24. Rich Telford, Chautauqua County Undersheriff.
Who are the Enlow fiscal supervisor?
The first resolution in front of you is to amend our navigation snowmobile account by $4,300. This is going to be used. Office of Emergency Services purchased a new dive boat, and the $4,300 is to assist them with some additional equipment, a fabric enclosure cover, and some graphics once the boat is received.
Questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next proposed resolution is 8, authorize execution in New York State Office of Homeland Security State Law Enforcement Terrorism Prevention Program Grant fiscal year 23.
This is a grant that we've received from New York State for several years running, the SLEPT grant, if you will, in the amount of $59,750. Typically, just under about half of that amount is used for our communications coordinators, partial salary and fringe benefits, and then the remaining probably 50–60% we utilize on various equipment.
Questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next proposed resolution is number 9, is authorized agreement with Town of Hanover for enhanced police protection services for the fiscal year 24 and 25.
So this is a little deja vu all over again. This is a few months ago, we were in front of you proposing a contract for enhanced police protection for the Town of Hanover for 2024. With the change in town supervision in Hanover and some negotiations over the last several weeks, we are looking to amend the contract for 2024 and then also include a second year of 2025. In a nutshell, the amount for 2024 is going down slightly. We proposed to the town an adjustment in the way we calculated what we would charge them. In years past, we've used a step 4 deputy, which is middle of the line. We've also charged them for family 2 health insurance coverage. We've lowered the family 2 to a single coverage on a couple of the deputies. So that's the significant decrease that you see for 24. And then for 2025, we used a 2.5% increase over 2024. Honestly, it was agreed on both sides that we'd like to get 2 years under our belt instead of having to revisit this every couple months. So we think it's advantageous to get 2 years, and then we can start revisiting that in a year and a half to go forward.
How many man hours do you think that you've spent on this particular
Contract?
Contract, yeah.
It seems like quite a bit. I know Miss Enlow has been, between the sheriff and I, we're always, hey, calculate it this way. What if we do it this way? What if we do it this way?
On phone calls and talking back and forth with the Town of Hanover and stuff,
And, and when they brought up a multi-year contract, we're like, let's do it. Let's, almost like, let's take a year off. I think of Ms. Mikowski and HR, and I'm sure the years that there are no contract negotiations, it's a relief. Multi-year deals, and then let's reapproach it. So that was one of the reasons we're like, yeah, let's start with a 2-year contract, and then in the future we'll look at another 2 or 3 year contract, just so we can get it in place and not have to readdress it every couple months.
Do you think that you may consider doing this with other townships, with those particular ones, or you just?
The other townships, it's a possibility. They are not as difficult since it's not full-time coverage, and it's part-time coverage, but yeah, we're willing to look at anything, and you know, as time goes on, it's always amazing how time flies, and it's like, oh, it's time to renegotiate again. Didn't we just do this?
Yeah, sure.
But it's
Yeah.
been a full year, so little adjustment, and in true negotiations, we came down a little bit, and the town seems to be on board with this, and so that's why we're proposing the adjustment for 24 and addition of 25.
Well, in the big picture is we just want to make sure that the people in the town of Hanover have that protection and that security. So thank you for the work that you put into that, and those residents do as well. Questions, comments?
Dan, just one. Rich, in the past, we've had agreements with Village of Silver Creek and the town of Hanover. This includes both this year.
That is correct. The actual agreement will be signed by the town, and then the town and Silver Creek have their own arrangement for
Gotcha.
who contributes what.
Okay.
That is correct.
All right, and also, look, kudos to you, the sheriff's department, and the town of Hanover officials for coming up with this multi-year agreement. I think that's a good thing. It allows us to plan. It allows the town of Hanover to plan ahead too, so I think that it's a win-win situation. Just one other thing. If the town of Hanover continues to have questions as far as the cost, how we came up with the figures that we did, can we provide those in detail to the town of Hanover?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Miss Enlow and Miss Swan before her, Excel spreadsheets are a wonderful tool, and we've got multiple versions, and they make my head spin, but Miss Enlow makes sense of them. So
If they ask for it, we can provide that breakdown.
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
I will jump in and say really quickly that with the town of Hanover, we provided that cost breakdown back in, I believe, 2020, when we first started negotiating a plan to essentially bring them up to actual costs. We came up with a 4-year projection. Everything was done on Excel spreadsheets. They were openly shared with the town of Hanover. And, you know, we did adhere to those estimated amounts for that 4-year plan. And unfortunately, there was still some discomfort with the numbers and, you know, a further desire to negotiate on Hanover's part. But the sheriff's office has always been very transparent in sharing that information since day one. So.
Thanks, Jen. I appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Next proposed resolution is number 10. It's amend 2023 OES budget for 2020 SHSP grant.
Noel Gutman, Director of Emergency Services.
No Bonnie today?
No, not this morning. I left the boss at the office.
There you go.
So this is to bring it, pretty much finish up the 2020 SHSP grant. We had purchased some specialized rescue equipment with that, and just bringing that money into our budget to account for that. The SHSP grant is a grant we get every year. That grant is shared. 35% of that goes to the sheriff's office, and that's used for a lot of different equipment aspects and other budgetary, other personnel expenses.
Questions, comments? Do you make the titles? I like to have instead of most of our resolutions in the title description has what it is spelled out and then OES after it. So if someone doesn't know, I don't know what SHSP means.
Okay.
Unless I read further on. But just-
Bonnie does that. I'll talk with her and we'll make that adjustment for you.
Even in the back, I'll go back to a different one. Not that I'm seeing one right away. But that way, at least when you read it out, you know what it is. Because even takes you a minute to say, is it Office of Emergency Services? Oh, yes, you know, it's common to her, but to someone else, it took me a minute.
We will make that adjustment for you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Usually she does. I don't usually see it. This is the first I've seen it this way. Usually she has Office of Emergency Services written out on it. So to see the next one is the same way, but now I know. I've been trained. Number 11 is proposed resolution is amend the 2023 budget for Office of Emergency Services for the fiscal year 2022 for this SHSP grant.
Yeah.
She's trying to save you time having to read all that
I
stuff.
know, I like the word.
All right.
Essentially the same thing. This is the 2022 grant from SHSP. Again, this was to bring in some, bringing money in that we purchased some additional specialized rescue equipment again, out of a different year grant.
Questions, comments?
Just a comment on that, and I said it yesterday afternoon. A lot of times, like the previous one and this is specialized rescue equipment that our technical rescue team has bought in this instance, but a lot of times the functionality of the special teams is to buy this specialized equipment so that our local, in our case, 42 fire departments, it's a resource for them to have that they all don't have to have. So it's a good way, good use of the special teams to have this equipment available for everyone to use as needed.
No, and it's good, having the equipment available, and you know, the departments know that what you have, so if they need it, they can call you and say, we need this unit, and it's shared service and sense, you know, same
Yep,
way.
that's exactly it.
Yeah. Questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next resolution, number 12, is authorize agreement with Village of Fredonia and amend OAS 2023 budget.
So as we've talked for several months, we were the recipient of the Hazard Mitigation Planning Grant, which is a grant that we worked with all the municipalities in the county to identify, you know, hazards for the municipality to try and, you know, get funding for. This grant, this was a plan that has to be approved by both State Homeland Security and FEMA, and it needs to be in place for municipalities to be eligible for funding. And in the planning of this, we found there were some high hazard dams that were not specifically included in there, and specifically to include the Fredonia Reservoir. And the cost of getting that specifically put into as an annex to this plan was an additional $3,000. So I spoke with the Fredonia Fire Chief, Josh Myers, who was kind of leading up the charge from Fredonia to, you know, and as we know, there were some water issues with Fredonia, and they wanted to get this reservoir in the plan so they could, you know, try and leverage that for future funding. Yeah, and again, the cost was an additional $3,000, and they want to pay for that. So this is to get this in place so that we can accept the funding from them to pay to get that Fredonia Reservoir into that annex.
Questions, comments? Are they gonna keep the Fredonia Reservoir? Are you talking about the one, it's the reservoir that's outside of Fredonia?
Correct.
Toward Castigan, that's gonna be continued to be utilized?
Yeah,
in
this will,
future years, to
by-
your knowledge?
What this will do is this will allow the Barton Luguitas, the company that did is working on our hazard mitigation planning grant. They're going to do some additional stuff with it. I'm not exactly sure. All the stuff they're going to do for it was going to cost that extra amount to get that reservoir into the annex, so that municipality would be specifically eligible, you know, for funding if that funding becomes available. Those projects need to be identified in the hazard mitigation planning grant, so the municipalities can go after that funding in there.
Mhm.
And that's what will help them do.
Okay. Questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next proposed resolution, number 13, is fiscal year 2023 Emergency Management Performance Grant, EMPG. she used the right title there. You see that? She didn't have just EMPG, so she's not very consistent, I see.
Unlike her, so we'll make sure that's good. This is another grant. The EMPG grant is kind of a yearly grant, matching grant with it. We use primarily, I believe, for personnel associated cost. And this is so that it can be accepted. This is, so it can be authorized for the county executive to sign for it.
Questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next resolution is number 14, is the fiscal year 2023 State Homeland Security Program, SHSP.
Yeah, this is to bring a portion of the grant revenue expenses into our 2024 account from the SHSP grant. And then for the county executive to authorize it.
And you say a portion. Is this like a multi-year grant that's like do you know if it's a 3-4 year grant?
Yeah,
And then-
these SHSP grants are usually a multi-year grant.
Yeah,
And this was to bring a portion of the grant revenue and expensed into the 2024 budget.
sure. And a portion, I mean, it must be a fairly large grant. You're pulling in $111,000 of the grant, so it must be a pretty large grant, one of your larger.
Yeah, I'd have to look
large
exactly at it, but yeah, I know this. Correct.
ones. Questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next proposed resolution is number 15. It's amend 2023 budget to implement the morgue project using funding from the American Rescue Plan Act.
Good morning, Dr. Mike Falk, Interim Public Health Director, Chief Medical Officer.
Sam Zaffoto, Fiscal Supervisor, Department of Finance.
So we are here to discuss the preliminary approval from the ARPA committee for the purchase of a county morgue. We have had some real issues over the last several years with morgue space. And I think we also have future potential issues in regards to emergency preparedness. Over the last couple of years, we've realized that there is a significant shortage of morgue space within our county hospitals. Really enough space for their own decedents. And only 2 funeral homes have cooled space throughout the county. We are seeing increasing numbers of unclaimed decedents, meaning they have no family, or we have to have time to find family. In those particular cases, the funeral homes are hesitant to take those individuals without knowing the ability to pay for services and not knowing if there's next of kin or family. When that happens, those decedents need to be stored in a cool space or a morgue. We have had several cases, 2 this year that I can think of, where the decedents were in sort of an advanced stage of decomposition. They had been placed in one of our county hospitals and created some significant challenges in regards to odor permeating through into other areas of the hospital, the ER, the OR, and as you can imagine, that creates a major problem. It's really not much different for the funeral homes. They have daily business to take care of, and when these individual decedents cannot be, embalmed or cremated, that creates a problem. We're also, seeing increasing numbers of decedents who do not have the ability to pay for funeral services or cremation. Our Department of Social Services has to process that, and we do have a couple of funeral homes in the county that will take care of those individuals once Social Services gives them the commitment for payment. But that sometimes takes a day or two to figure out. We have streamlined that process to move it up, but there are times when we need to take care of our own decedents for a day or two. The other part of this is, and I don't even like talking about it, but it's the reality of the world that we live in with increasing violence and mass fatalities. Heaven forbid we have something like that happen within Chautauqua County or a nearby county, whether it be a weather-related event, whether it be a mass shooting, or a large traffic accident, bus accident on I-90 or I-86, where we're dealing with a mass fatality situation.
Or an epidemic.
Yeah, well, and that was a real thing when our COVID team went through COVID. That was a real thought. We sat in those planning sessions, and we said, what happens when our hospitals are overrun with decedents? And we could have access to federal assets for this, but it's only if a federal disaster is declared. And most oftentimes, these are isolated incidents, and federal assets are not deployed for this. The Department of Health and Human Services at the federal level they have access to a DMORT team. It's basically a disaster mortician type of unit with large cooler spaces, but that would be in the event of a massive federal disaster. So we have had some real issues over the last few years with this problem. And when you look at the sort of the allowables for ARPA, one of those is looking at emergency preparedness. What did we learn from COVID, and how do we prepare for the next big issue? So what we are proposing, if you kind of turn to page, I have handouts here. I was going to give you guys page 3 and 4 kind of shows you and gives you an idea of what we're looking at. There's 3 different options. There's a portable morgue unit that can be deployed to go pretty much anywhere. There's a container type of unit that is semi-portable but would require some heavy equipment to move from place to place. Or there's the option of just a stationary, permanent, morgue space. We're really leaning more towards a portable unit that can be deployed anywhere in the county in the event that we have, mass fatality type of event. And that doesn't necessarily have to be 10 or 12 or 15 decedents. It could be 3 or 4. Right now we have contracts for transportation for decedents up to Erie County Medical Examiner's Office, for $475 a transport. In the event that we did have, more than 2, it probably would make sense for us to take care of those transports ourselves with this type of portable unit. The other advantage is that we can be a good neighbor. In the event that a neighboring county has a mass fatality event, we can, form some formal MOUs with the counties to be able to deploy our county asset to help them out. Last year's snowstorm in Buffalo, we could not transport any decedents at all to the Erie County Medical Examiner's Office. Thankfully, it was a quiet weekend that weekend, and we did not have to have an issue with storage of decedents, cold storage of decedents here within the county. But that's also a real issue. Within the contract this year with Erie County Medical Examiner's Office, they basically said we cannot guarantee autopsy services in mass fatality type of events. And that may be their own mass fatality or our own. So So that's really, what we're looking at this point in time. I do have to acknowledge the fact that, when we think of something like this, we have to think of storage space, where are we gonna put it? A trailer like this can be stored outside when it's not in use. When it would be in use, it would have to be in a space. And I think temporarily, with discussions with Director of Emergency Services, Noel Gutman, we would be able to utilize some of those bays. He would be able to pull an asset out of the garage, and we could put this one in when it's in use. But we have to acknowledge, and something I've noticed within our own department, and in discussions with other department leaders, we do have a real issue with storage facilities within the county. And I do acknowledge that this trailer adds to that issue, but I think it's an essential piece of equipment in regards to preparedness, and then tackling some of the real issues that we have on a month-to-month or year-to-year basis. So happy to answer any questions. And we're looking at ARPA funding of $100,000. I think that we'll probably be able to come in a little bit lower than that with a portable unit. It just depends on, what type of accessories we would need, equipment on the inside, storage space on the inside, and that type of thing, so.
I have a comment and a couple questions. Comment is, everyone has their own worries, right? Worry about, well, how am I gonna get this built or made, or how get to this meeting, how are we gonna find some money to cover something? But, so for a county employee to have a worry about where are we gonna put these deceased bodies, and geez Louise, where are we gonna find the space? So, to help with that worry, I think that this is a very viable project, and I hope that it would alleviate those worries for you and fulfill the need. I wouldn't want that worry of, I've got 5 bodies that need to go somewhere and I have nowhere to put them. So that said, do you have a vehicle that would be able to tow this trailer?
We do have county vehicles that we already have. Noel Gutman's in the back of the room, and we have discussed. Emergency Services does have several vehicles that could be utilized to tow the vehicle when it needs to be deployed. A separate conversation, we've also thought about leasing a coroner vehicle within the health department.
Yep.
Or within the coroner program. My thought is that with the proposed coroner supervisor position, which we've talked about, which you'll be hearing more about come New Year, when that title is finalized with our human resources, we have an opportunity to start tackling some of our own transports to Erie County Medical Examiner's Office. A leased vehicle, I'm not sure what it would cost for, a vehicle, whether it be, $12,000 a year. But at $475 per transport that we're contracted out and paying right now, I mean, two or three transports a month, we got that covered. It wouldn't cost us any extra. So we could have that vehicle also eventually someday.
Would that vehicle be the type that would be able to service both? I mean, it's kind of a unique vehicle to be able to tow this trailer that you're discussing. I'm sure there's some heft behind it, so you need a fairly heavier vehicle. So you want to utilize this trailer in that repetitive, just to take a couple up to Erie, or would you rather have a couple different vehicles for that need?
Yeah.
In sense of keeping this trailer around for a while and having a long shelf life, if you would, running it up I-90 with all the salt every year, this thing's gonna be rotted out in 6, 7, 8 years.
We would, for the routine transports, we would just use the vehicle itself. So
Okay.
it would be a hearse type, probably suburban style vehicle, that would be enough to, we'd have to determine the specifics about the weight of the trailer and that, make sure that, we have a vehicle that has the trailer package and all that kind of stuff to be able to haul the trailer. But the vast majority of those transports, if we did those several times a month, they would just be done with the vehicle itself. 'Cause
Right,
it would be a
okay.
single decedent in those particular cases, so.
Okay. Before you mentioned if you had a couple, you could take them up in the trailer, but, so that's why I just said, wanted to, but
Yeah,
point that out. But also, it's a unique vehicle to be able to tow that around and also just do your single transports and having that. I'm sure this trailer is a little heavier than just a normal
yeah.
trailer too.
Yeah, no,
so.
it's a good point. We would
Right.
take that all into consideration, so.
And also, it is nice to have something sitting inside at last. We do acknowledge the storage part, so, you know, as long as you have some good teammates, which is I'm glad to hear, so. Other questions, comments?
You going ahead? Go ahead, Terry.
No, go ahead,
Oh,
David.
Dr. Falk, I just worry about the trailer itself. Just because, you know, trailers don't last long, and about 10 years from now, we'll be looking at a new trailer. And do you think the investment would be better for a permanent brick and mortar site, long-term Chautauqua County? What's your idea on that?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly would solve the issue of the problems that we currently have. You know, several times a year, needing space to put, you know, a decedent temporarily while we figure out funeral home services. It probably doesn't help us much in regards to the emergency preparedness / mass fatality type of event in our emergency preparedness plan. And that's why I thought, you know, the trailer in combination, you know, would help both of those aspects, you know. But
You know, you could transfer, I understand, that's why I was hesitant with Dave, because I think you could transport those people to the brick and mortar site, especially if you have a vehicle, and also we have other ambulances in the county that, so, you know, transporting those to our site. I thought that a brick and mortar would be better in our own county, but the only other point you did make is if Erie County says, hey, could we borrow that trailer for a weekend, you know, or this event, you know, so that's the only other play, but.
the, you know, I think there's on page 4 or 5 or so, there's some prices there for just a stationary kind of brick and mortar type of storage unit. It is somewhat more inexpensive, but it doesn't include the space to put it. That would be you know, we'd have to construct the whole kind of separate structure and building to place that unit inside of, which I have no idea what that would.
Dr. Falk,
It would definitely put us well over the $100,000.
Did you say the hope was to store that trailer inside?
Eventually, you know, we would, you know, it could easily be stored outside most of the time, but when it's in use, it would have to be inside. Yeah, for security purposes, we'd have to have it in a locked facility. Yeah.
Did you talk with Buildings and Grounds at all in regards to any of the ideas that they would have for like a brick and mortar space for you?
We have had lengthy discussions with them in regards to space to store our health department assets, including our mobile health vehicle.
Yep.
The spaces right now are very limited, and, you know, we've had some preliminary discussions with other departments in regards to some of the needs for other county assets, but not specifically for a sort of a brick and mortar type of stationary morgue space. I certainly would not be opposed to something like that if we could find the space to do it, but given the lack of available space, it'd be difficult. And then it then doesn't, you know, we kind of get away then from the emergency preparedness, mass fatality, being able to deploy an asset to a scene to assist in that.
Sure.
You'll get a ride.
Yeah, Doc, this is a concern that came up before. At the height of COVID, as the public safety chairman, I had numerous discussions with John Knoll's predecessor at Emergency Services. So we did discuss this a number of times. But I guess my concern is whether it's a trailer or a brick and mortar structure, there's going to be additional costs, not just the initial costs, but there's going to be ongoing costs. And I'm just concerned about those continuous costs, Sam, that the county could incur. So what I'm wondering is if we shouldn't continue to talk to the hospitals and the funeral homes and possibly, I know you've had extensive discussions, but maybe further discussions to see if there isn't some way they could accommodate the county if there's these mass, unfortunately, deaths. If we could pay them extra or work out some sort of cost arrangement, because I think doing that, I think it would be cheaper for the county. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about those options, whether or not we could, say, purchase a stationary morgue space and then contract with one of our funeral homes to place that unit within the funeral home.
Exactly.
Because the biggest challenge with the hospitals, it isn't really a matter of them asking for, payment. It's a matter of the odor permeating through into the rest of the hospital. That's the biggest challenge.
But if it was at a funeral home, different story.
We'd have to find a funeral home that would be willing to contract with us to provide this service. And it would probably need to be in a sort of a separate building outside of the funeral home.
Okay. Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I'm not the biologist, but why is there the odor issue? Is it because of the they're not cool enough? I mean, is it a freezer problem that they're having, or why is it? Why is that
it's
the issue?
once you get to, it's not the individuals who die that same day or the day before is not as much of an issue. You get them into a
Understood.
cooled space and things are okay.
Yep.
It's the unattended.
Yeah,
deaths.
it's the individuals that have been dead for days.
Sure.
3 to 5 to 7 days. They're in sort of various stages of decomposition.
Yep.
Putting them in a cooled space doesn't hide that. That odor remains, and unfortunately, it has been a real issue over the last
Sure.
couple of years. So, we've been directly told by one of our hospitals that we will not take any of your decedents any longer, because this is a real problem. And I understand why. I can't, and so now we're left with, well, what do we do as a county when we have 400 plus coroner cases a year? And maybe a few of these we have to take care of ourselves. We got to do something.
One, I see the issue too is where are you going to put this thing? That it isn't an eyesight. You're going to put it in the back corner lot there, and we all say, well, it's where we have all of our dead bodies. And when you walk by the trailer, you definitely know it. So that's where are we putting the thing?
There's a break room downstairs. Just throw something in there.
I would be happy.
It's a big parking lot out here.
I certainly, I recognize your concerns. I'd be happy. We do have a little bit of time to kind of think about this. I mean, I could, give me a month or two, and I could, do a little homework with a couple of the funeral homes, the hospitals, see what kind of space they have. If you felt it, more important to just table this for a month or two and kind of wait to get more information, I'd be happy to be able to do that.
Yeah, and Doc, that's where I'm coming from. I think If we continue to look at different options, perhaps we can come up with something a little bit less expensive. This is a whole nother area that we'd be getting into, and I'm just concerned about the long-term cost. So I think if we had some more answers on some of these things, I'm not saying no, because look, I too recognize the need for this, but I'd like to see some options and some, well, hopefully, lower cost estimates,
Yeah.
if possible.
Mr. Scudder.
So when you say the hospitals take these individuals, I assume there's a fee that goes along with that?
We never have had a contract
There is
with the
no fee,
hospitals.
okay.
The hospitals would sort of, help us out. But,
I was gonna use that thinking if we had our own spot, then we're eliminating
yeah,
a fee, but,
yeah.
okay.
And is there, like, so how long would it take if we said yes today and want that trailer? How long, is there a lead time for that trailer?
It'd be several months. We'd be able to get it to our own specs and, yeah.
And it is being paid with ARPA funding, so we have to have it paid for by not
And
next,
we have to have a purchase order in by the end of 2024.
okay.
Yeah.
Because we could also refer this to the planning board about a brick and mortar morgue. I mean, we could go with the trailer and move in a different direction, or maybe a little bit of both.
Well, and I'll tell you the advantage to that. I sign, invoices to Erie County Medical Examiner's Office on average of about $30,000 a month for autopsy services. I'm not proposing that we do autopsies in Chautauqua County. You need a board-certified, forensic pathologist, like Erie County Medical Examiner's Office has for the vast majority of those. There are sort of a cohort of decedents that I think we have an opportunity to take care of here on our own in Chautauqua County once we have a full-time coroner supervisor. And I'll give you an example of that. Probably the vast majority of the decedents, 115 or so that we've sent to Erie County Medical Examiner's Office with an average, bill from the medical examiner's office of about $3,000. Not to mention the $475 it costs to send the decedent there. We may have an opportunity to. The vast majority of those decedents are unfortunately drug overdose cases. We need accurate death reporting, and part of that problem has been over the last however many years is not a really good mechanism to get tox screens. We're moving towards that, and I think once we have that full-time coroner supervisor that can have eyes on that program every day, all week long, we're going to be able to take care of our own decedents within the county. So my point is having a morgue space may give us a little extra room for those evaluations of decedents, sort of like what would happen in a medical examiner's office. Not a full autopsy, but you may be able to transport a decedent to our county morgue, then do a full evaluation. Sometimes, most of the time, it involves pictures to document the whatever it be, injuries or medical conditions. Get a tox screen, whether it be a urine sample or a blood sample, and then be able to then save $3,000+ by not sending that individual decedent to the Erie County Medical Examiner's Office. I'm not saying it's gonna, out of 114 decedents that we send to the medical examiner's office, maybe the first few years we have 20 or 30 of them that we don't have to send. But there's other examples of savings that way, and I think that once we have, we've built this coroner program such that we now have 6 nurses, most all of them with acute or emergency experience. Myself and the other coroner's physician, Dr. Walters, are both emergency physicians with 15 to 20 years experience in emergency medicine. I think there's many of these decedents that we can handle on our own here. If we had a proper facility, then we may be able to do that more often.
Would that be something, would you have to, so if we were gonna check into a drug overdose, would we be able to do it at the site of the morgue, or would you have to take them, transport them to a hospital to do all that?
You wouldn't have to transfer it to a hospital. We may be able to take care of most of them right at the scene. You know, whether it be a urine sample or a blood draw to get those tox screens. But there may be incidents where, you know, you have an isolated motor vehicle accident with an individual where there's not a lot of risk in regards to the death reporting. It seems fairly straightforward, and you basically need documentation in a well-lit area, and where it may not be appropriate to do that at the scene necessarily. A space like this could be
So you think it could be
helpful.
done at this space?
Yeah. And our thoughts really were that it potentially could be done, you know, inside the trailer, because it would be big enough. You know, but
Would you think that the majority of our emergency incidences would be happening within Chautauqua County?
yeah,
I hate to have it sound like such a loaded question, but it is, unfortunately. But, so, like, even you, like, these storage containers, they are movable. A truck's gonna bring that and sit that somewhere. Are those portable still, once it says you need a place that, a permanent, secure location? But those are movable, and there are
like
companies.
the
that-
storage unit.
Yes.
Yeah, we gave great thought to the container style unit.
Yes.
Right? I mean, we see houses being built with containers now. right?
Understood.
Like, you know, that may be an option, and it may be kind of an in between, and you know, besides building a whole new structure to house a portable or a stationary morgue.
Yes.
You know, perhaps a unit like that. You know, if we could find some county property to place it on, it would be in a secured setting.
Yep.
You know, we really don't need to build a new building. We could just
And
put
I
that
think
container
in
in.
maintenance
And we
wise-
could always move it if we had to move it. It would just take a little extra work.
Agreed, and I think that if, you know, there was that emergent situation, depending on how it was set up, you could hook onto that thing that, I mean, companies move those daily. You could pull that on, move it, you just, as long as if it was a self-contained unit, or if it was gonna require a power source that was from, you know, I don't know some of those specifics. So if it was a self-contained unit, or versus, and maybe you could even get specific when you ordered it, that it could be more self-contained. I'm just trying to think along, but as you can see, there's good questions.
Yeah.
And I think it, you know, at this time, and just even for purposes, I think I myself know that there's a need. I can see that I'm okay with the funding ask, and the project, and using the ARPA funds is great. It's a great way to utilize them. I want to answer your worry about where am I going to put bodies. I don't want county employees having to worry about that every day. So I think we need a solution, but how we get to that solution. Any recommendation of a process we want to recommend to Dr. Falk in moving forward with this?
I just want to comment on the container.
Sure.
Boy, we're acting like we know what we're talking about here. I think the container is movable, but I don't really see it as trailerable. I don't think it would be something that we would want to purchase with the thought, it's got to go up to North County, because you're going to have to winch that thing onto some, I mean.
And I
it
didn't
would be
mean
an
them within
event. It'd be
within
an
our
event
county.
to
Like
move.
if Erie wanted to borrow, Erie County.
I even see that, though. I mean.
I get it, I know.
But it might be a decent option, because you can get them big enough. And as I recall, it was probably one of the.
You priced a 40-footer, or 20-footer, and there's a 40-foot available.
Yeah, I mean, you may be able to have enough space in there for some working space inside of that container space.
Sure.
Some temporary working space when we need to.
I like the
do
thought of
some
it
work.
coming and not having to build something, if we could put it somewhere, pour a slab, set it down.
Yeah,
I think in locating that place is important also, because security, right? And
Yeah.
then also the
Yeah.
unfortunate smell that is a possibility,
Yeah.
and also just a sense of, you know,
What it is.
what it is. And I think that needs to be well thought out and identified really before we say yes. You know, I don't wanna have it say yes and then the next thing we know, it's over there and we say, well, you guys approved the funding for it and there it sits, right? So that, if we know
We get the log
specifics.
cabin siding for the outside of
Yes.
this.
Yeah.
Your little porch.
But to your point, you know, it's not gonna be readily movable, but if you ever did, and say, you know, we don't ever want anything like this to happen, but, you know, it would be an isolated type of event. It potentially could be
Sure.
moved to a separate location if you had to, just not routinely.
But we're not gonna be whipping around the county with this
No,
thing.
no.
Right.
Every
No,
event.
and I like that more permanent structure, like what Dave was referring to is, you know, I don't think replacing that container as much as that trailer that is pulled around. You know what that trailer would look like if it was pulled around a lot. If it's sat somewhere, I think it would last longer, but if it was
Well,
transported around, we know what salt does. Sam just told us his salt budget from last year, and geez Louise,
Yeah.
it's gonna cost us here too, you know, eventually.
Yeah, and there's aluminum options now with the trailers, and we would point towards that direction.
Sure.
But, you know, a container type structure may have, you know, a life that's extended, that we don't have to worry about those types of things, you know, so,
Especially if the site's prepared right.
Sure.
yeah.
So I think, you know, in recommendation, we want some more information, we want a location, we want, you know, more of a, what you're buying, what you're planning with it, and then, you know, how you know, maybe involve some of those other departments to help with that, game plan a little bit, and, but I think that it certainly is something that we need to move forward with. It's just a matter of some of these,
Yeah.
you know,
But
details.
I'm not saying no.
That's correct, and that's what we wanna
Yeah.
move it, we
Just give
wanna.
some more in-
Neither am I.
Nope,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
not.
okay, a little more info,
Yeah.
okay.
So I, you know, and that's a point we wanna make as a committee, in all of us, that we're interested, and we're not saying no is right. And we just wanna make sure we need some more details.
Yep. Well, I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate the opportunity to present these ideas and think through this with you guys. Give us a little bit of time. We'll reach out different options as we talked about and look more into the some of the container options and some storage sites, some sites we could place it.
Is the thought that it would be in Mayville?
Probably, well, we'd have to look at different county properties that we could, you know, probably central county would probably be the best. However, with that being said, probably 70% of our decedents are from South County, so, you know. So it wouldn't necessarily have to be Mayville, but it could.
I've got some land out
All
And
right. Well,
the security aspect's interesting too. I think the security is important, because you can't just have it sitting around somewhere too, to be able to be, so that's a concern, and I suppose some sort of a monitoring of some sort. I mean,
yeah.
tampering happens, but,
Yeah.
you know, and I know you know that, so that's a consideration.
Yeah, preferably it'd be within a locked, fenced-off area with cameras.
Correct.
Yeah, so.
I think that it is, we would need to table this, and officially, so that way, and we can table it with some comments, so if anyone would be willing to make that, a recommendation
I'll make a motion to table.
in a second.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. So motion, resolution is tabled, and we look forward to future discussion. So if you need help, feel free to reach out to any of us.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Guys, a good idea, a little bit more information
Yep.
if you could.
You got it.
I see a pad with a fence.
Apparently you have another one next. So let's see what we have. The next resolution is number 16, is amend Chautauqua County Department of Public Health 2023 budget for increased educational handicapped children administrative costs.
Yes, good morning. The charges that go into this, which is the preschool program, are done through a payroll allocation from other employees through the health department. we've had a changeover in the staff, particularly in the fiscal unit. It led to additional hours being charged into the program, so we are over budget at this time in the benefit portion. This is moving costs from the vacancy savings under Public Health Administration to cover that overage at this time.
Questions, comments? Easy one, Sam.
Yep.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good Christmas. Next resolution is 17, is a proposed resolution authorize revised lease agreement with Warwick Plaza LLC. Is anyone here to speak to this one today?
I would speak on it, but I don't have anything to say.
But you know, Mr. Chairman, it seems like we have a lot of this, more and more of this just keeps popping up. Maybe if people are not coming to speak to us about their plans or what they're moving forward with, I mean, at least it should be tabled, I would think.
So this one I see, just reading in, it's the Office of the Veterans Service Agency. I understand to that point, Mr. Wilfong, too, but also we did have this pre-filed, so if we had questions, we could ask him. I do appreciate the description, too. Did anyone work with Director Carlson? I know he's a small department, too, so sometimes making the meetings, but,
I'm active in the Dwyer program, but that's where they're gonna be going, and I actually we meet at a large church in the city of Jamestown, so we meet off-site.
yeah. Thank you for raising your hand and coming forward.
I apologize. Jen Swan, Budget Director, Chautauqua County. So this resolution results in, it is a budget neutral resolution for the Veteran Services Agency. It's not going to increase their cost. What they're going to be doing is they're staying in the same building, but they're moving from the second floor to the first floor. The first floor is much more easily accessible for handicapped individuals, which a lot of veterans are. And in addition, it's much larger, and they're going to be sharing the space. And in that sharing of the space, the increased cost will be taken on by the other party. So it results in no cost increase to the Veteran Services Agency. Their lease term remains the same. They're just relocating from the top floor to the bottom floor.
That description was very helpful, thank you, and I agree with
You're
Mr. Wolfong, we need the description.
Yes.
And I would just hope that in future instances, the department head would be willing to make the meetings to explain that to us.
He was here last night. I didn't realize I needed to let him know that he needed to be here today as well,
Sure.
so.
Okay. Questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Thank you. If would anyone want to take a 5-minute break?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm good.
Stretch your legs a second? Or
Sure.
we just take a 5-minute recess. This is a good point. It's kind of halfway through.
Have a
I could
cookie.
utilize the restroom and then we return. So just 5-minute recess. We'll come back and kind of pound through these. So thank you. we will reconvene. Somehow 5 minutes turned into 10, but we will get past that. Thanks, Our next proposed resolution is number 20. It's authorizing the submittal of a New York State Community Development Block Grant application for micro enterprise assistance. Is there anyone to speak on this today? Mr. Wilfong was gonna start to make a motion to table, and I was like,
Going on
getting
here?
nervous here. I was.
We almost had that table before you sat down.
All right, Cody, which is the Chautauqua Opportunities for Development, they have run a micro enterprise program over the last couple of years. They received a CDBG grant to do so, and it was very effective. And it sort of fulfills a need that the IDA and others can't, because they're small loans. They're less than $25,000 a piece. They're for startups, for small businesses. They don't necessarily need to create jobs, but they were very effective. So this would give the authorization for the county, and the money needs to pass through the county because it's federal monies, a CDBG. And this would give authorization for us to apply again for another $200,000 for kind of the next phase, or another tranche of funding to do the same thing. Just to give you an example, Persnickety Pies in Faulkner, and there are others, that was a recipient of this grant, of this loan, through this loan program, and so that's what it is.
Is it a 100%? Is there any administrative fees or anything associated with this?
No, it's 100%. Yep.
Questions, comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next proposed resolution is number 21, to authorize use of 3% occupancy tax reserve and amend 2024 budget to enhance programming for the Chautauqua County Visitors Bureau.
So these next three resolutions are a result of sort of a challenge that the county executive brought to our department some months ago. There's a pretty healthy reserve in the 3% occupancy tax of $678,000. Part of that is because we were quite fiscally responsible through COVID, and actually the occupancy tax performed better than we thought it would, so we have pretty healthy reserves. So the idea was to come up with some projects and initiatives to use some of that funding that would result in heads and beds. And so our department came up with really, and you'll see three things, but this first one is Chautauqua County Visitors Bureau, to allow them to do additional programming and advertising in key markets such as Pittsburgh and Cleveland and Erie and others, where they can really target those populations to come and come to the county. And that's something that they've always, whenever they have extra money, they do more of that marketing in those key tourism markets. So this would allow them to do that with $100,000.
Do they go further than that?
Yes, they do. I can't speak to exactly where, but yeah, they market widely, but they sort of target a lot of their advertising towards those markets, 2, 3, 4 hours away. Obviously, the CCVB does great work. They got a great staff. Andrew Nixon does a really good job. They know this. They know that world and what's effective and what's not. They did a kind of a market analysis last year where they were looking at who's visiting, and it was based on their area codes, and then they organized that so they can target to those area codes as well. These people are already visiting. Those are the people that we need to target those markets.
Yeah, no, it's important, and our structure of our county is what entices individuals to visit. So if you know, New Yorkers flock to Florida because of the weather and beaches and things of that nature. Are Floridians coming to Chautauqua County for what purpose and what reason? So are we going to promote in Florida? I don't know. What can we draw them up
Yeah,
here for if they
right.
want to ski? But if we don't get the snow. We have a lot of snowmobile tourism, you know, but we could promote our snowmobile industry. Unfortunately, we're just not getting the weather. So that's a miss. You know, people think about tourism to a certain area. You know, people go to Tug Hill for snowmobiling. It's pretty popular there. It's pretty well known. Could we get them to come to Chautauqua County? But we need the weather to participate. So there's a lot of variables.
And I think they do a pretty good job with that for Four Seasons.
Yeah.
You know, telling our story, trying to get people here in the shoulder seasons and in the off seasons, you know. You know, they've been, and Andrew's been there, what, 20 plus years now, so they do a nice job.
I like the use of the reserve.
Yeah.
Money sitting around in a reserve is
It's
doing
not
no
doing anything.
work. So let's put it in, and honestly, by utilizing it, hopefully it'll help refill the reserve. So,
Sure.
Terry?
Mark, would we or could we use some of this money to promote the eclipse next April?
Yeah, absolutely. We still, if you know, depending on what you do today with,
Okay.
and the legislature does, we'll still have, you know, $375,000 in the reserve. And so if you've got some ideas, and I think some things are already underway. We haven't really been involved in our department, but I know Noel has. And so we could certainly wrap our heads around something that makes sense with CCVB or others and I know CCVB is already working on
Okay.
that. So I know that they are. I can't give you specifics, but they've been talking about it. I'm on their board, and they've been talking about preparing for that and marketing for that.
Well, this could possibly supplement some of the things
Yeah.
that they're doing.
Hey, Mark,
Yep.
just don't leave us in the dark, okay?
Okay. And
Yeah,
I will-
if we can promote the eclipse, we have sunglasses to give people if they come.
That's right. Solar glasses.
Solar glasses.
Yep. I will bring that up to Andrew.
Terry, dark, solar.
But the Great Airport Commission also is working on festivities up there where people can come and view from the fine establishment, Jamestown Airport.
And it'll be coyote free, right?
Any other questions or comments? Before we're going to start foregoing this comment section. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next proposed resolution, authorize use of 3% reserve funding and authorize agreement with Chautauqua Region Economic Development Corporation to initiate a public art program.
So you're gonna like this one. And Dave was able to hear from the people on the ground from our department that sort of conceptualized this and really have done a lot of work on thinking this through. You know, we have a very vibrant art community here. There's a lot of other communities have really capitalized on art in creating places where, you know, people want to visit, kind of that hook. And so really what they came up with is this mural program. So it would be art murals around the community, and they haven't nailed down exactly where those will be and what buildings and all that. But and then also chairs around the county, so oversized chairs. And that's sort of capitalizing on our furniture history. We've had meetings with Gary Henry from Fancher Chair about developing building chairs that are sort of indicative of what was here over the years, and placing those throughout the community. And it would be sort of Instagrammable moments. And I can't tell you, my office at the BWB Center looks out at that chair that's sitting there right on 3rd Street, right near the ice rink. And all day long, there are people coming up there, sitting on that and getting their picture taken. And it's unbelievable how many people that are taking pictures, I'm sure, sending it off to their friends. So, this would be, again, a mural art program utilizing local artists and probably some professional artists, working with Fancher Chair to develop some concepts of various chairs and building those and putting those throughout the community in various places.
Are the chairs gonna be with the murals?
No, they're two separate things.
Oh, okay.
They're two separate sort of
Well,
programs.
when you were talking about the photo opportunity,
They're-
I'm picturing a chair
Yeah.
in front of a mural, which would be kind of cool if it would
That,
work.
that could happen. That could happen, certainly. I mean, the murals have to be in certain places, and certainly if you're gonna do I'm making this up, an Adirondack chair overlooking Chautauqua Lake, oversized chair, there might not be the opportunity for a big
Right.
mural behind it.
No, yeah, okay.
So,
Provide that one.
yeah. So I think it's really creative. It's really sort of a bow to our artistic community. It creates another attraction, which then builds critical mass for things along with trails and improving our downtowns and breweries, all those things that people, another thing for people to be attracted to.
And I just want to say what Mark was saying is, last night's meeting, I started out at 100% against it. Because $100,000 is a lot of money. However, yes. However, when you start talking about like the Allentown Art Festival in Buffalo, literally draws thousands of people. So we're really trying to provide opportunities for people to come and do something in Chautauqua County. And I think that's probably one of the things we always talk about. Well, we need good jobs, we need housing. But to keep our young people here, they've got to have something to do. Now, I do understand that the chairs and stuff are probably weather-related, but I'm just saying, the more I think we can offer our, the population, the better off the life that they can actually have. So I changed around and I did vote in favor of it.
And I will say too, you have your hesitancies, but Lake Erie provides a lot of artists with a lot of objects by just waves washing up on shore. As a kid, we've all picked sea glass up off of the beach and still have a jar of it at home, right? Used it in some sort of art project. There's pieces within the county that have been made and sold for high value with the driftwood that's come up ashore and things of that nature. So it's all county too, and I think those programs could be, like Dave said, now that specifically isn't included in this, but it may or may not be. But those murals are good, and I think that it's certainly a big touristic thing that could be utilized, and possibly. Terry?
Yeah, Mark, as far as specifics, how many oversized chairs are we talking about? How many murals?
Approximately.
Even how many local artists might be employed with this program?
Yep. Approximately 5 and 5 is what we think we have a budget for.
5
100,000.
oversized
5
chairs.
and 5. Mhm.
And 5 murals.
Yep.
Okay.
And maybe 2 or 3 of those are local artists, and
Okay.
2 or 3 are, in terms of the murals,
Okay.
are 2 or 3 are some renowned artist.
Okay.
And then the chairs, again, would be built by Fancher Chair, and we haven't.
That's a local.
Yep, and we've been doing a lot of research on what those chairs would be, where they might go, to sort of beckon back to our history. And we think that that would be something that would be attractive. I think it would get some attention.
We need another shark girl.
Well, I brought that up last night. I've had my picture taken. Shark, they have the Shark Girl in Buffalo. Yeah, down in Buffalo, and everybody gets their picture taken there, and then they text it off to their friends or put it on Facebook. Yeah,
So we're gonna have a muskie girl down by Chautauqua Lake?
you never know.
Okay.
Could be in the back of the
Who's gonna
chair.
model?
Well, and
Well, we'll leave that up to you, Scudder. Mark, I guess I'm not opposed to this totally, but I'm thinking $100,000 for a new program. I would be more comfortable providing $50,000 and see how the program gets off, and if it does work, we could provide more funding in the future. So I'm gonna make a motion to reduce this to 50,000.
So, a motion has been made. Is there a second? No, so
much for that.
so no seconds, so the motion
No.
fails.
I'm just gonna comment on that. or-
Sure.
I just think 50,000 is limiting it too much. I think, not knowing, but 50,000 doesn't get you much. 100,000 might get us just what we need, but 50's not enough, with all due respect, Mr. Niebel.
And I would agree, because there's a lot associated with even the murals, is preparing the buildings, finding the building, brick pointing, sandblasting, painting. I mean, 100 grand is gonna be stretching it.
We might be looking for a little more.
Maybe, we'll come back, because we
yeah.
haven't, I mean, we'll see.
Come back.
Well,
before you
my
spend.
thought is this is a new program. I'd like to see how it develops, and then if it develops and if it works, then I'd be in favor of additional funding, but not.
We'll come back for more.
Well, I think you're going to get it today, Mark, but.
A point I wanted to just bring up is I went to a wedding down south this summer, and I walked through this nice little town, and they had on the streets some different sculptings made of metal, and
That was Ronald McDonald.
there was at least 10 of them, and they were actually they kind of brought the facade around, if you would, and they were neat to look at, and they were promoting some local artists and some esteemed artists, and so I can envision what that can do, and it brought a lot to that street, if you would, and that street was littered with shops and stuff, so they made it a place, and I could see what that could entail. Is look, having some of these murals, building some of these, adding that into some of our communities, and seeing where it could go, right? So if it's popular, maybe it'll build from here. I don't know.
Mhm.
Maybe it'll be a flop, and everybody will say, "Why did we approve this?"
No,
Well, let's hope not.
That's right. So
It's gonna be very difficult to get some type of measurable success from your $100,000.
Sure.
That's the arts world. I mean, I get that.
Yep.
But, and I just wanted to comment too, is that there were some murals painted in downtown Jamestown where we thought they would be local artists and they were not. And there was some kickback on that. So that local artist thing is, I think, more important than bringing people from out of town because they don't know who it is. Or we could even look at student art. I mean, there's opportunities for that, I think.
And I think a good presence around the county and not specific to just a couple of different areas, so being spread across is the best that we could be into our different communities. Obviously my point is I don't want 5 chairs and 5 murals in Jamestown.
Right. Oh,
You know,
no,
so,
they're gonna
yeah.
be.
So if we
yep,
spread it out.
strategically located.
Dave does, but that's,
Dave wants that,
we
you know.
want them spread out.
You want one in Ellington.
I want one in
Yeah,
there.
so.
There's plenty of room right down
Yeah.
on the side of the fire hall there. You can put it.
High chair.
Height chair.
A milking stool.
Fitting.
I say put one right on Main Street in Mayville, that great view of the lake. Like, sit here and take a look.
Yeah,
There's gonna be a million ideas.
yep.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. Any other discussion or comments? Any other motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No, based on the previous reasons.
Thank you. So, motion carries. Next proposed resolution is authorize use of 3% occupancy tax reserve and establish capital account for waterway trail hazard removal.
So, we have these incredible waterways, these incredible assets, one of which is the Marden Cobb waterway trail. However, it's unusable because of all of the trees and the beaver dams and the debris and whatever. So they've really been unusable for quite some time. And by the way, I know that personally because I've canoed it, and it was horrible, horrible. And so really the Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy, the Department of Public Facilities, Division of Parks have been doing a concerted effort of trying to clean that up. And I believe they've cleaned up about 12 miles, and there's about another 12 miles or something like that to go. And they need the resources to finish that job. And I just think it's really important that, you know, our waterways have been ignored for a long time. And it is a fair amount of work to clean them up, but there's now an effort underway to do that. And I just think, again, it's another asset that we have that's currently underutilized because of that for that very reason. So this will use that funding to continue that work and get those trails usable.
I'll agree with you on that one, and I wanted to, you know, this is a way that we could draw people in. You know, we could get that person from Florida to come up and do some kayaking, maybe. If you put your canoe in Cassadaga Lake, you can make it to Redbird Corners fairly easy in the sense of debris and portages, if you would, because of obstructions. People themselves have kind of maintained that and kept it open. If something fell, they'd cut it out of the way. But you used to be able to continue on. You could put in at Redbird and continue and come toward, you know, Gary and work your way right down into Faulkner and follow the creek. But it is very overgrown, and people can't do it any longer. And it would be a massive undertaking to make it open again. But I think it could be opened up and utilized.
Yeah.
So there we are. I appreciate this project in the sense that I think it is a good outdoor activity that is a good way to utilize those funds, and I think it will get utilized.
And I think also, you know, the county's promoting these waterways, and to have people come here and you know, try to use them and then just get really frustrated like I have personally.
Sure.
They're like, I'm not going back there. You know, here we are promoting them, and they're horrible. So
Can't use them.
yeah, you can't use them.
Yep.
I mean,
I know. I mean, I know people. They go down to the Kinzu area and they utilize those areas because they're open, they're free, and
Yeah.
people can go. You know, so they're capitalizing on it, and I'm sure there's maintenance that goes along with it. You know,
Yeah.
that the counties and towns have put forth. So, good project.
Yeah.
Comments, questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next resolution is authorized agreement with Chautauqua Region Economic Development Corporation for tourism development and placemaking.
So this is, the Partnership for Economic Growth was created about 5 years ago, and it's a public-private partnership. We've been very successful. We got a very large Ralph Wilson Foundation grant. The Northern Chautauqua Community Foundation is funding us, the Gebby Foundation, and we have 5 different work groups, one of which is a tourism / placemaking work group, and we've really been successful in identifying projects and then assisting the municipalities in queuing up those projects to receive funding. It's sort of a skill set and a resource issue especially for the smaller towns that they don't have. And that's sort of what our expertise is. How do you take an idea and develop it down a continuum until you're ready to implement, actually? And there's a lot of steps in between. And that's really what the partnership has done. I'll give you a couple of examples of where we've been successful. One is the Chautauqua River behind the National Comedy Center. We applied for, you know, we really led the charge on developing a conceptual plan. you know, costing, what's it look like, what's it gonna do, you know, and then applying for the funding. And we were successful on two different, working with the city and others, successful in getting two different grants of over $2 million to do those things in that, you know, park, if you will, behind the National Comedy Center, to attract tourists. And, you know, whether it's walkways, signature gardens, small visitor center, kayak launch, boat docks, buoys, those are all things that are going to be funded through that grant, those two grants that I just talked about. And another one is Mayville. We did the same thing with Mayville, where we went and we talked to them about, hey, you know, we think this has great potential, work with them, you know, conceptualized, did a concept plan, leveraged that, applied for funding, got over $600,000 to do things like a gateway for the Chautauqua Bell, trails through the park, and other improvements in that park. So this money, this $50,000, helps the partnership to fulfill the mission of assisting these communities. And by the way, there's workforce development is another work group, community development, business development, and infrastructure. So those are sort of the 5 work groups where we're pulling stakeholders together from the community as sort of the experts in that field, and really, you know, having conversations about, you know, what are projects that are needed and how do we sort of work together to make these things happen. So that helps us to do those things.
Questions, comments? Thank you for your description. You're welcome. Very informed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next proposed resolution is authorized agreement with Small Business Development Center at Jamestown Community College.
I think you've all are well aware of the great work that the Jamestown Community College Small Business Development Center does and their staff. I know personally and you know, been working with them for over really 15 years. And, you know, from the IDA perspective, we get a lot of people calling, oh, I want to start up, I want to, you know, manufacture widgets. I don't know, whatever. And it's sort of a dream, and it's certainly not ready for the IDA or the banks or any funders to sort of say, okay, here's the money, you know. And so what the Small Business Development Center really does is it works with these small businesses and others to develop a business plan and put together the financing, really look at the markets and look at cash flow and do all those things that a funder needs to see in order to sort of jump on board. And their numbers, since Courtney took over a few years ago, have just skyrocketed the number of people that they're assisting. I think, to be honest with you, I don't think this is enough. I think we should be giving them more. But certainly, you know, them getting this funding is money very well spent, in my opinion.
Just a clarity thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is a Small Business Development Center an organization or a bit?
It's an organization.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to make sure the
Yep.
wording was correct. It says authorized agreement with Small Business Development Center, not like a authorization agreement for a Small Business Development Center at Jamestown Community College. So it's
It's through JCC.
it's through
It's
JCC,
JCC,
but I mean,
yeah.
it's with a Small Business Development Center
Yeah.
because they're an organization. I just want the
Yep.
clarity is all.
Yeah. So they've been around for a very long time. There's SBDCs all over the state.
Yep.
They're all part of a larger organization, and the SBDC at Jamestown works with Allegheny, Cattaraugus, and Chautauqua County.
And that's the building kind of across the street, if you would, right, from the
Yeah.
campus. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Questions, other questions or comments?
Yeah. Mark, offhand, does the Development Center work with the incubator program at Fredonia State? Do you know offhand?
Yeah, I do know. I do know.
Cooperation or?
Well, no, they do have conversations, and they have you know, sort of shared notes and I know that Chuck Cornell at FTI has met with Courtney, and they work together, but they're not located in the small business, in the incubator, but they certainly do sort of, refer people to each other.
Yeah,
So,
the
but-
incubators at Fredonia, this is at JCC.
Yeah.
But I was just wondering, there is discussions, there is cooperation between the two?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Yep.
Because they both do about the same thing, somewhat.
The FTI, the incubator, does not help write business plans and do financial projections. They are more sort of a convener of the community and resources, and they do things like provide speakers, and so they're different. But I think it
Okay,
would make
all right.
sense for them to be more collaborative, for sure. That
Okay.
maybe, and I've talked to Courtney about maybe having a presence at least a day or two a week up at the incubator as
Okay.
well.
All right,
So, yeah,
okay,
yep.
thanks.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next proposed resolution is authorized agreement with Chautauqua County Region Economic Development Corporation for Greenway Development.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys have heard about the work that this, the Greenway Group, Chautauqua Greenways, has been doing. And we sort of formed that group under the umbrella of the Partnership for Economic Growth, one of those work groups. And the whole idea, if you think back of, 2011, when we did a comprehensive plan for the county, and one of the takeaways from that was we really have all these incredible, trail assets and greenways. We should really look at how do we capitalize on them, and we did a greenway plan. And out of that greenway plan, we ended up doing the horse trails in Cherry Creek, Boutwell Hill State Forest. We did the trail in Mayville from 430 over to the park, the trail in Westfield that runs down along the creek. And those are all sort of things that were outcroppings of doing that greenway plan. And then it sort of sat dormant for a little while, just because we didn't have the resources, and didn't really have somebody sort of leading the charge. And along comes Jacob Bodway, who has been very active with the Chautauqua County Parks Committee and others, and working with the DPF, and has really sort of fired up things again. And they're doing a lot of work now in rehabbing all of our trails, because a lot of those trails were built in the 70s and really have not received any attention since then. So they're doing a lot of work in the trails and improving them. And one of the main goals of this whole thing was to sort of pull together all these about a dozen different trail groups. There's a number of horse equestrian trail groups and hiking trails and rails to trails and cross-country ski groups and all this, and sort of bring them under one umbrella. And sort of collectively, there's power in numbers, collectively really identify projects that would make sense for all of them, instead of them working in their own separate silos. So that's what we've done. They've been meeting now for 8 months, 10 months. We've been applying for grants, and we've hired, actually have Jacob Bodway now part-time, under the partnership, leading this effort. And I think it's really important work, and I think he's doing a really good job. And we got all the trail groups sort of working together instead of individually.
Questions or comments? Not hearing any. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next proposed resolution is authorized agreement with County of Chautauqua Industrial Development Agency for Business Development Assistance and Promotion.
Yeah, so this is annual funding that the IDA's been receiving for quite a number of years, since I can remember. So it's got to be more 15, 16 years or more. And it's to really help the county, help the IDA and the county promote not just the business community and the opportunities for incentives through the IDA, but also the county. So it's really publicity and promotion. you know, the IDA, you probably saw the county executive's memo the other day about we were the highest performing IDA in the region last year, and we're going to have a banner year this year. It's even going to be better. And so really this, and we didn't, and the other sort of agencies that get money through the county got a little bump last year. We didn't get a bump. We're staying where we have been for a long, long time, and this helps us to pay the bills. This is by no means a majority of our budget, but it's a piece of it, probably less than 10% of our budget, and it really, really helps us to do our job. Just real quick, this year we're going to have more than $800 million in projects that we assisted. 575 jobs created, 2,300 retained jobs. We secured over $10 million in grants. We did 34 projects this year at the IDA. We approved 9 loans. So those are some of the stats that you'll see, by the way. We're doing an annual report. We'll have it in January. We will give copies to all of you, and then I'll come back and do a presentation about not only us, but what the partnership's doing as well.
Can I plant a bug? County helping county. There's another county need. And also, you sold yourself as getting those businesses in here, and you're really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
The county needs a recycling facility. We have a recycling thing, you know, we have a county landfill that gets overwhelmed with recyclables and nowhere to send them. And, you know, there's a market and there isn't a market, but, you know, the county would welcome a recycler. And also we have solar projects that eventually we're gonna forego their, in lieu of, you know, they're gonna forego their life expectancies, and they're gonna be needed to be recycled or gotten rid of some way or another. And a lot of these, same with the turbines and that, there you see a lot of local laws being put into place for these items needing to be recycled. Let's, you know, can we promote a recycling company to come in, take a look at, you know, as there's opportunity, and it's just as something that the county needs. You know, we could utilize, you know, the county spends a lot of money on getting rid of their recyclables, and it ends up costing us money. You know, if we send all these plastics or glass or cardboard, you know, we can make money on cardboard, but you get stuck with the rest. And so it's just as, you know, just a tidbit I wanted to add for you.
Yeah.
I'm sure it could or could not be on your radar.
I appreciate that. You know, I spent about 10 years in the private sector, and one of the things that I was involved in is CRT recycling. So cathode ray tubes and televisions, and sort of when it was clear that the flat panels were going to take over for the CRTs, it was like, well, what are we going to do with all of these glass tubes? They have cadmium and barium and lead in them. You know, they're a hazardous waste. And you know what ended up happening was, because the recyclers, you know, the private sector sort of saw there was an opportunity there, that all this material was going to go into the waste stream, and they started popping up all over the place, and they were created. I suspect the same thing will happen with the solar panels and the turbine blades as well. But what I will do is I will contact the landfill, and I will talk to them about what they have, what type of materials they have, and what volumes, and I'll see what kind of market research we can do to try to see if we can target those recycling companies.
That would be helpful, and I think it would be helpful for them. They've got a lot of research. They're in the business, but I think the extra eye would be helpful. And also, maybe they're missing something, you know. So that's you know, it's just an area I wanted to bring forward.
Yeah,
and it's
we
part
can
of what we're
incentivize.
doing here.
We could incentivize that too,
Yeah.
right? We find the right companies. We say, this is the type of material we have. This is what you do. We have a site for you. We have incentives for you. Will that work?
Yep. No, and I think, you know, we're being progressive today in other areas. You know, we're this is another area that we can try to be progressive with.
Yep.
So, any other questions, comments?
Dan, just one. Mark, so as far as the other counties in western New York, the Chautauqua County IDA ranked first as far as
Yep.
projects?
Mm-hmm.
Geez, that's
Dollar
fantastic.
volume.
Congratulations to
thank you.
you and the department.
Yeah, thank you. Agreed.
And so for next year, you're looking at $800 million in projects, and what was it, 44 projects? Or 34, or, well, whatever it was, it's 800 million in
Yeah,
projects.
yeah.
Okay.
About 35 projects. Yeah, I mean, that's what, we have a meeting coming up Tuesday, and if the resolution passes, which is, by the way, Wells Ice Cream,
Okay.
they're looking at a large project there,
Significant.
significant, and so that is included in those numbers. So, yeah, I think we're gonna be, and last year was 500 million. This will be over 800 million in projects.
Big increase.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
yeah, I can't say it's gonna happen every year, but,
That's
yeah,
fantastic.
2 in a row.
Mark, just one thing. I think we've had a lot of successes. I really do.
Mhm.
But I'm also interested in some of the projects that have been less than successful. And not to cast blame on anybody or anything else, but just to look at those and see what went wrong, what we could have done better, to see what we've learned from those projects that have been less successful. So I think that's important for us to know, as well as not only the successes, but the ones that haven't been quite as successful as we would have liked.
I appreciate that, and we do that. I mean, clearly, these projects are complicated and involve a lot more agencies other than just in banks and investment, personal investment, and, property acquisition. I mean, there's a lot to it. So we do our best to set the table and provide the incentives that we can, and we do what we can on that end. And then we're also involved a lot with the sort of the technical assistance, making sure we're bringing in the state, making sure they're, tapping into any federal monies that might be available, and working with the Small Business Development Center, whatever it is, right? And sort of, championing the project. And sometimes they just don't work out. I mean, if you look at Welch's, and we're not giving up on that, but, Sam Savarino, the developer there, he went back, he basically closed down the company. So we're all over that. We're like, okay, what else can we do? What else can we do? And I'm still, I'm still optimistic that is gonna work out. But that's one example of what you're talking about. Well, why, and then what can we do to try to save it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of wins, but some of it, not all of them are wins, and I'm interested in the projects that weren't wins as well.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Just to reiterate what Terry said, congratulations and good work on the accomplishments and continuing forward. That's good news, so
Thank you. We have a great team.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next proposed resolution, authorize agreement with the County of Chautauqua Industrial Development Agency for attraction and development of tourism-related businesses.
So you're all well aware that tourism is one of the top 3 sectors in this community. We see a lot of revenue and a lot of people here because of our vibrant tourism industry. And a few years ago, quite a number of years ago, I want to say 10 years ago or so, the IDA created an incentive program specifically targeted at tourism-related projects. And we've been quite successful. So we're marketing it. We're really working with some tourism-related industry. And I'll give you an example of some wins that we've had. Harbor Hotel. Okay, we were first. I mean, we were right in front of that from the beginning. We showed that land when it was in Northwest Banks, had foreclosed on that. We showed that to the eventual developer. So it started there and all the way through the process. The Doubletree Hotel, that languished and languished and languished. We were in the middle of making that happen. Hideaway Bay, if you haven't been down there in Silver Creek, there's 10 glamping units all built, and that was a whole and Bob knows, certainly all of you know, that that was a foreclosed property. And it got pulled out, went to the land bank, and then we worked really closely with the land bank to put a project together. I mean, we talked to a lot of developers on that, and now it's gonna be beautiful. The White Inn, I mean, you know, we worked really hard on that one over the years. Bob also knows all about that, was at the table on some of those conversations. So, you know, that's just a small sampling of the type of stuff we're doing that's in the tourism industry. And again, this assists us, helps us to do that marketing. And by the way, we hired a new marketing coordinator, Jason Sample.
Oh,
So you probably all know him from WRFA, and he's been incredible. So we're really tuning up our website, our digital marketing, and the next couple of years, we're gonna be hitting it out of the park in terms of that. I think right now, you know, we've been doing okay, but we're gonna really kill it.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 29, proposed resolution. Amend 2024 budget to implement the Chautauqua County Strategic Infrastructure Project Identification and Development Project using funding from the American Rescue Plan Act.
So this is all about queuing up projects to try to tap into the billions of dollars that are available through the Infrastructure Act and other funding. You know, you can't just apply and say, I want money to finish a water line from here to there. First of all, you gotta really do an assessment of what makes sense in terms of what type of infrastructure do we need. I think about economic development, you know, if we're gonna, you know, create shovel-ready sites, if we're going to, you know, try to activate sites, help certain companies that need water, for example, or even like Fredonia's situation, we sort of have to do an assessment of what needs to be done and prioritize those, and then cost them out and really do all the pre-engineering and really sort of queue them up so that we can then apply for the billions of dollars of infrastructure money that's out there. We can't just do it. We can't just ask for the money. We really need to do our homework. And that's what we're going to do with this. We are going to contract with an environmental engineering firm. We've already been talking to them about a whole process about how we determine what those projects are, and then, you know, prioritizing those projects, again, you know, fleshing them out, and then applying for the funding to get them done. Money well spent.
Over the years, it's been hard to swallow the fact of putting the money out there for these types of projects. But eventually, you do get and receive the return. And also, you have to do this in order to get the funding. So
It's an investment.
it's an investment, and you have to look at it. And instead of it being an expense, then you have to look at it as an investment.
That's right.
So, any questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays. Appreciate it.
That brings us to our next place in our agenda today is other. Dr. Falk was here, and he did want to introduce the new interim health director, or the new health director. Sorry, wouldn't be an interim anymore. But he said that he had presented a few different times, and that we all know there has been the county's put out a notice, and that you know, he just wanted us to know that Lacey.
I sort of told him, I think we all know what's going on.
We all know. So congratulations to Lacey in her new position, and we want to thank the outgoing We want to thank Dr. Falk for being that position and taking on that responsibility. So congratulations and thank you to both. Does anyone else have anything under other,
Motion to adjourn.
other than someone wanting to make a motion to adjourn? And
We
a
have a
second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Yay.
Opposed? Carried. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.